I want to bring in Senior Manager, Oil and Gas at Anderson, Temitope Kolade. He joins us from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and for your patience as well. So first of all, Russia's threat of prices going higher because of those sanctions on Russia by the West. What are we really looking at here?
Well, apparently this is a build-up, and it's getting to a climax that the world is finding difficult to deal with. Like you just said, Putin is also saying that the decline of gas supply to the rest of Europe might continue. Apparently, about some days ago, there was an announcement that there was a need to have some maintenance work on the pipelines that supply gas to Europe, Germany in particular, and beyond. And of course, there are fears that those pipelines may not come back into use because even before then, the supply of gas to Europe was reduced to about 40%. And of course, we see Europe also doing a lot to ensure that there are contingency plans, there are emergency plans to store up gas and maybe diversify from gas and maybe go back to the fuel that we said they were even dirty before, like coal, right? So it's unfortunate that this is happening at this time, but it's what the world is faced with, and we only can hope that the situation gets better as we watch it play out. But I mean, this is not the best of times for oil and gas.
And gas around the world, that is, not just for those in Ukraine, beg your pardon, those in Europe, which will suffer the consequences. That pipeline you're talking about is supposed to be open tomorrow, but then the Russian president says there's no guarantee the taps will be turned on so that countries which have paid for, which are supposed to receive gas from Russia, would be receiving that. I want to talk about the ruble now. The Iranian religious leader encouraging the Russian president to help replace the dollar. There seems to be, some dispute over, what should be the global currency that should be used in, global trade. Is it possible? Is there any possibility in the near future or in the distant future where, the Russian ruble could become a major player in this?
I don't think so, and I don't think there is anybody that would, any organization that would, for instance, legislate a particular currency for global transactions. I think it's a matter of economics, it's a matter of politics as well, and that's what Russia is currently trying to do to ensure that people pay for gas in rubles, pay for whatever oil that is being supplied by Russia in rubles. But again, it's unlikely that we're going to start having those conversations. You're aware also that in certain parts of the world, for instance, if you go to a part of Africa, there is a central currency that is being used, for instance. Well, it's to ease trade within that region, just like we have euro in the whole of Europe as well. But at the same time, each country wants to exercise some sovereignty, and the more your currency is out there, the stronger your economy is likely to be compared to other economies, which is what Russia is trying to do at the moment. I don't see that happening for Russia, especially given the stance that it's currently taking. Of course, it has its ties, it has its alliances, and they would probably look at what economic gains are in it for them and the ease of exchange for them as well, and consider whether they could pay in rubles, but it could be a major issue, for instance, if you look at how it impacts Europe trading with Russia going forward. And we've been seeing those tiers, those ties basically breaking down over time with Europe. And I think that would continue. And of course, US, for instance, is not in alliance with Russia over this invasion and very many other countries. So I don't see Russia prevailing with rubles over time, except for maybe its allies coming into terms with Russia.
On the horizon, exports of grains could resume via the Black Sea. Those conversations are going on between the Russian president trying to implore on him to allow Ukrainian grain out of the country so that the world stems a looming food crisis. But in the event, that that doesn't happen, that Russia eventually reneges on its promise to reopen the Black Sea, what could happen? And how soon could we be in a food crisis?
Well, I think we're already having it. Even in Nigeria, for instance, there are a couple of those things that we import from Ukraine, and we've been experiencing some scarcity already, especially when we look at our local issues here in Nigeria, for instance, where people are not able to go to farm because of banditry and all of that. There is that danger of food crisis. I cannot say exactly when, but the truth of the matter is that Ukraine supplies a lot of agricultural products across the world. But there are alternatives to that as well. Wheat, for instance, I mean, Ukraine gives us a lot of wheat and maybe some other products, right? So we can only hope that that doesn't happen. But if it then happens, we need to look at alternatives, right? Whether the alternatives would help us deal with the issue for maybe a short term is the issue. We might need to then look at maybe getting people back on farm in very many other places across the world so that at least that part that Ukraine supplies to the world is not altered altogether, and it doesn't have that spiral effect on very many other economies, and of course doesn't loom into that food crisis that we think might happen. I think that there are other nations that would also help cushion that as well. It's not only Ukraine, but again, Ukraine in itself is in deep troubles. Russia in itself is also in trouble because lots of the supplies that it gives to Europe and other nations in terms of gas and oil forms its vital revenue stream. So it's not in the interest of either Ukraine or Russia to continue in this conflict. I think that we're just hoping that there will be some negotiation that will bring things back to some state of normalcy, even though we know we won't get back to that normalcy soonest.
Yeah, that normalcy can only be restored when the war in Ukraine is ended. Thank you so much, Temitope Kolade, for speaking with me.
Thank you, Amarachi. Thanks for having me.
When we come back after the break. Olympic Committee plans to increase budget of aid fund for Ukrainian athletes. That's in sports. Stay with us.